LA Kings fans are feeling good about what we've seen so far in the playoffs. That and more on this fan feedback edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also co-host of Locked On NHL Game Night, a daily podcast and YouTube show recapping the night in the NHL. New episode out right now. And a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Well, the Kings are in Edmonton for Game 3 of the Stanley Cup playoffs after two big wins on home ice in Games 1 and 2. We'll touch on Game 3 briefly coming up, but it is another Kings fan feedback show. Your chance to celebrate, critique, praise, complain, discuss our beloved Los Angeles Kings. So let's get right to your emails. I'm going to read them in which the order in which they were received. And we are going to try to get them all in. We had quite a few this week, but we start with Bill in Winnetka. And he wanted to share some thoughts on the series before it started. He said, you are Edmonton. You got to beat the Kings. How do you go about it? Power play success and getting the Kings off their game would be an idea. So yeah, thug it up isn't that far off. Edmonton needs power play goals, but I think LA's power play defense is better this year and the goaltending is better. It's easy to say Edmonton needs secondary scoring, but from whom? We all liked Arvidsson, but again, smallish for playoff hockey. He's a problem for the Oilers when he plays defense. Can the Oilers expose Kuzmenko defensively? Kuzmenko has to be Kuzmenko. He needs to keep the Oilers on their toes defensively. Even if the Kings don't score, make the Oilers work for it and defensively break down the Oilers for the third period and overtime. Second power play unit, don't get beat behind you. Also, at least one time on home ice, throw out the 5-forward setup. Maybe you never use it again, but if you use it once, it's more for the Oilers to think about and wear out in the long run. So that was Bill in Winnetka's thoughts before the series started. He talked about special teams and the Oilers' lack of secondary scoring. I think those have both been key points so far on the series. And he talked about Kuzmenko being Kuzmenko. I think he certainly has been to this point. And he also talked about using the five-man power play unit. The Kings certainly have done that, and it has been amazing. This is from Matt in Las Vegas, and this is up there with one of my favorite emails I've ever gotten. I'll explain why. He says, hey, Eddie, long time no see. It's Matt from the 2012 parade and your Kings Talk episode. I started listening to Locked On Kings a few years ago, and I've been meaning to reach out so I could say hi to you at a game. I just finished engineering school at UNLV, and I haven't been able to make it back for the playoffs. A topic I wanted to bring up was that after Game 1, I felt that maybe, just maybe, the way the Kings won Game 1 would be more beneficial to them throughout the series than winning 4-0 or 4-1. After Game 2, I think that assessment was correct. Up until the last 9 minutes, I felt like the exact same script with a couple of reworks. The Kings had the lead in the first, extended it in the second. Draisaitl and McDavid did their thing, and early in the third, they scored again and looked threatening. The Kings then capitalized on every chance, unlike Game 1. It was fantastic. The question now is, how do the Kings win on the road? Our home crowd and harmonica power was so good, you could argue, for Game 1 at least, it was a difference maker. However, if they do go and steal one in Edmonton, I think our confidence gets to a place it hasn't been in years. Thanks for the rad show every day. Go Kings go. And that was Matt in Las Vegas. So here's the story on what Matt was talking about at the beginning of his email. In 2012, the Kings were on the verge of winning the Stanley Cup. I was working at Fox Sports Radio. Our affiliate, AM 570, was carrying the Kings on the radio. It was well known that I was the hockey guy in the Fox Sports Radio world. So AM 570 reached out to me. They asked, would I be willing to host Kings Talk after the Kings won the Stanley Cup? Nick Nixon and Daryl Evans wanted to go celebrate the championship rather than host Kings Talk. So they asked me if I would do it, and I said, absolutely. So the Kings beat the Devils. Nick and Daryl wrapped up the quick post-game show, and then it was time for Kings Talk, and they handed the mic over to me, and they went off to go celebrate into the night. And I hosted Kings Talk. It was the most fun and easiest show I have ever done in my life. All it was a bunch of happy Kings fans talking about winning a championship for the first time ever. And one of them was a kid who was, I think, 9 or 10 at the time, named Matt. So he was obviously easy to remember, a kid calling into the show. So you might remember him. He was holding a sign that said, "Now I can die in peace." And it got a lot of attention on TV and newspaper and online. So anyway, fast forward a couple of days later, my wife and I go to the victory parade. We're standing right in front of Staples Center where the buses were going to stop and everyone was going to come with the Stanley Cup. And there was a kid that was there next to us by the fence. We started talking to him, and I realized this was the kid that I had talked to on King's Talk. And now, all these years later, I get an email from Matt. So that is awesome. And I'm going to guess if I see Matt anytime soon, now that it's 13 years later or 12 years later, I probably would not recognize him from that 9, 10-year-old boy that I saw way back when. But it's so cool that he has been listening to this show and is reaching out. So anyway, great to hear from you, Matt, and hope we meet up at a game sometime in the near future. To answer your questions, I agree with you. I think when the Kings were going into the third period of game 2, I think they had a much more of a attitude of, we are not letting these guys get back into it like they did in game 1. So I think they were much more on kind of alert and locked in. So I think you're right about that. As for how they can win on the road, I mean, the Oilers are going to be in desperation mode, and they're going to want to use the home crowd to help them get a much needed win. So for the Kings, you're not changing anything. But if I'm Jim Hiller, I tell the team probably something they already know, but I'm going to say, look, they're going to come out hard. They're going to come out right away. The crowd is going to go wild. They'll get a boost from it. All we have to do is just weather the storm early on as the game goes along. If they don't score a bunch of goals, if it's a close game and we're right there, things will eventually die down a bit from how it's going to start. And then we'll be in a hockey game and we can do what we're going to do. But initially, right off the bat, it's going to be wild. It's going to be crazy. I just think the Kings need to weather that first period kind of storm. And if they do, and if they score the first goal of the game, that will take the crowd right out of it. And I think they'll be just fine. Brian in Tampa checks in. He says, I almost had a heart attack watching game 1, but that's what the NHL playoffs are all about. It had to be almost impossible for you to act neutral in the press box. The Oilers' comeback is now meaningless at the end of the day. A win's a win in the playoffs. No extra credit points. Go, Kings, go. And that was Brian in Tampa. A lot of fans have asked me about this recently when I've met them at playoff games. And they're like, oh, I can't. How would you? I would never be able to do what you're doing. I can't hold back. I would have to cheer if I was watching the game. And I totally get where they're coming from. But I get a pretty good trade-off for kind of sitting there and just taking it all in. I get to go to any game I want to for free. They even feed me, and the seat's not bad. It's nice and comfortable. I got a bathroom there whenever I need to go. They give you snacks. So the trade-off, in my eyes, is definitely worth it. Plus, I do sneak in a few things here and there. When the Kings have been scoring in these playoffs, I have pounded the desk and let out a few choice words like, F yeah, under my breath a little bit. I may have even done this. Skinner. Don't tell anyone, though. Don't tell anyone that I've done that. Ruben Gabriel in West Covina says, Eddie, can you believe the Kings have 3 power play goals tonight against the dirty Oilers? If you would have told me earlier in the season the Kings would score 2 or more power play goals in one game, I would have told you must be dreaming. I dreaded the Kings in the power play early on, but now, wow. Kings have kept their foot on the gas in game 2, especially Juice with 2 goals. Proud of my Kings. Go Kings, go. Go Rain, go. Proud every dayer. That's Ruben in West Covina. Yes, it is pretty amazing how the Kings have turned around on the power play. Yes, I agree. It is so fun to now go from dreading when the Kings run a power play to now being excited about them having a power play. And I don't think it's just us. I think the players now feel the same way. They're getting energy now off the power play, and they're getting rewarded for their hard work when they draw a penalty. So now other teams can't play quite as aggressively as maybe they would like to, or maybe they did before. That is, if the refs are doing their job, because obviously the Kings' opponent right now doesn't want to give them power play opportunities. It has been a big deal. David in Las Vegas says, just listen to the Oil Stream podcast recap of game two. They're losing it over there. Pure entertainment. Also, just got my harmonica for when we score against Vegas here in Las Vegas. So David's already making his reservations to see the Kings take on the Golden Knights in Las Vegas. So David, no, first off, you can't talk about, I just listened to some Edmonton Oilers podcast, and they're losing it over there. You got to give us some details. What are they saying? What are they saying about this? Are they hitting the panic button? Are they saying they're doomed? I will say I would not be looking too far ahead at this point, even though, look, I think the Kings, I said going in, I thought the Kings were the better team. Nothing I've seen through two games has even come close to changing my mind. So I do think in the end, the Kings are going to win it. But we still have to see how it goes on the road. That said, now I know you're in Las Vegas, David, and you're thinking about, seeing the Kings play the Golden Knights. The Minnesota Wild won over the Golden Knights on Thursday. They lead that series 2-1. And no disrespect to the Wild, we need Minnesota to win that series so we can have home ice in the second round if the Kings, of course, advance. And my wife and I were wondering about the harmonica you mentioned. Would the folks at crypto.com arena allow you to bring in a harmonica? My guess is no, because I think they have some stupid rule about not being able to bring in artificial noisemakers. And could you smuggle one in past the metal detectors? I think you'd have to have like a plastic one. So many unanswered questions about the harmonica, but we shall see going forward. All right, we've got more emails coming up about the Kings and the playoffs. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Sticks 4K devices, no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 to Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus Max, and more. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required, available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Our next email comes all the way from Danilo in Germany. He said, Danilo in Germany. He says, hello, Eddie. Hope you're doing well. Want to share some thoughts about the last three games between the Kings and Oilers. First, when Philip Deneau said in Edmonton, they want to hurt us with the B team, he did not only relate to the cross-check against QB. In the middle of the first period, there was a penalty against Edmonton's Connor Brown for roughing against Deneau, a real dirty elbow check intentionally to Deneau's head away from the puck. And it continues in the playoffs. The Oilers make a lot of dirty plays, a lot more dirty plays than the Kings. Honestly, I'm disappointed in Leon Draisaitl, my countryman. As good as he is, there's a bad side to his personality. He makes dirty stick fouls. Last night, again, away from the puck, Leon made a slash in Trevor Moore's legs. Maybe it's part of hockey, especially playoff hockey, but I hate those sneaky, unsportsmanlike, dishonorable acts. Andrei Kopitar shows over his complete career you can be a great and successful player without that kind of stuff. In my eyes, the Oilers do exactly know who the better team is, so they're trying to find other ways to win the series. Jim Fox said it in the chat with you. The Oilers will test Quinton. I hope the Kings can win at least one game in Edmonton and close out the series in 5 at home. We'll see. He says, related to the long-stretched Skinner shouts by the crowd. I thought the crowd was shouting Skinner, sinner, blaming him for every goal against the team. By the way, I love our AK line. Don't get me wrong. AK short for the version of the Kalichnikov. Talking about the machine gun. Our 3 AKs are so dangerous. I enjoy your great work. Thank you so much, and keep it going. Best regards from a small village close to Frankfurt. I believe it's pronounced Nidital. Probably wrong. Danilo in Germany with that email. Thank you, Danilo. It's great that you have checked in. Good to hear from you. I do agree that the Oilers are a much rougher team than the Kings, and they definitely cross the line way more than the Kings do. I would say, Evander Kane, Corey Perry, Darnell Nurse in particular are the main offenders. I think the good news is the Kings power play is doing what it's doing, and certainly will make them pay for those kinds of things if the referees call it, of course. As for Leon Draisaitl, he is so big and strong, and he's a bit of a bully out there when he gets frustrated. I think Vladislav Gavrikov has done a great job of standing up to him, certainly not intimidated by him at all. I did mention the other day, I think Q has done a great job of not letting any of that rough stuff affect the way he has been playing. Oliver in Roy, Utah, checking in. He says, some observations after game 2 and 2 wins against the Oilers. I first feel like I owe Rob Blake an apology. Yes, the PLD trade was a disaster and is certainly his biggest mistake as GM. However, we should give him credit for taking a swing. Lots of organizations, maybe even including past Kings management, seem very conservative when it came to acquiring talent through trades and free agency. In the end, it didn't work out, but his post moves, PLD trade, to this point look promising. We keyboard warriors love to criticize and in some weird way believe we could do a better job running an NHL franchise than a guy who has spent his whole life playing and studying hockey. Don't misunderstand my point. I believe Kings fans have a role in keeping organizations accountable. I just think we tend to criticize quickly and are slow to give credit. Blake's moves, acquiring Kemper, Foegele, Janot this offseason, and then Kuzmenko via midseason trade were not sexy, but clearly were needs Blake knew needed addressing. And don't forget our future goalie prospects, Carter George and Hamilton Sokinski, looking at bright futures, along with the likes of Liam Greentree. Let's give Rob some credit. Now, with all that being said, the Kings need to complete this series with 2 more wins to make this a successful season, in my view, and then who knows what will happen from there. I actually don't see any teams in the playoffs that I believe the Kings can't hang with. Yes, the way they play on the road, this could come back to haunt them, seeing as though they are unlikely to have home ice in any other series, but I'm excited to watch how it plays out. Thanks for all you do, Eddie, and go Kings go. And that was Oliver in Utah. Well said. I hope we can have a discussion when it's all said and done about if the Kings should bring back Rob Blake, because the Kings have done so well this postseason. I am more than happy to have that discussion. And I know, it depends on how the playoffs go, and they got to show progress. If they do, though, and Blake wants to return, I'm certainly willing to talk about it. He has, I think, done a decent job over the years, but the lack of playoff success to this point is something that he has to be held accountable for as well. As far as home ice, actually, again, if the Wild beat the Golden Knights and the Avalanche beat the Stars and Jets, the Kings would have home ice advantage through the Western Conference playoffs. So again, go Wild and go Avalanche. Juan in Lakewood says, wow, home ice has been great this year, and what a way to start the playoffs. And it was nice to see you there. After the second game, the first thing that comes to mind was discipline. The team played with so much discipline. The Oilers are obviously trying to provoke the Kings into a penalty, as that is their best weapon, and the boys stayed calm and cool, beating them where it counts on the scoreboard. A lot of talking about how great McDavid was in game 1, scoring 4 points to almost steal the win. How about they start talking about Kopi and Kempe both scoring 4 points and dominating the second game? Go Kings go. And again, that was Juan in Lakewood. I totally agree about the best way to beat them is on the scoreboard. McDavid gets clicks and eyeballs, so the NHL media is going to do what they think is best for them. It can be a bit annoying, but keep winning and the attention will come along with the praise. This is from Oren in Croatia. He says, I am so frustrated and annoyed. The national coverage of the Kings continues to be incredibly frustrating. I've written you in the past complaining about it, and while I appreciate your previous explanation about why it might not get as much attention, the situation during the playoffs is ridiculous. Living 9 hours ahead of Los Angeles makes it tough to watch games live at 4 a.m. So the first thing I do when I wake up is check the score. When I saw the result of game 2, I was thrilled. Naturally, I went straight to NHL.com to read about it, only to find nothing about the Kings win was featured on the homepage, not even a blurb. Granted, I understand it takes a few hours to get the story out, but 7 hours after the game is over, the Kings are still not featured? Seriously? Kopitar and Kempe each had 4-point games, and we had 3 power play goals, and nothing was mentioned. Instead, we learned that Chris Drury is remaining the Rangers GM. Really? Is that even relevant to the playoffs? That's why I find the coverage incredibly disappointing. Gary Bettman talks about constantly growing the game and expanding into new markets, but it's all blah, blah, blah to me when teams like the Kings play at such a high level and still get overlooked. It's been an exciting series so far. Let's see what happens next two. Overall, I know they can finish them off. Thanks again for all you do. And as always, go Kings go. And that is Oren in Croatia. Oren, I agree with you. There is no excuse for that. I get that the NHL offices are in New York. I'm sure NHL.com is run out of there as well, but you're correct. As soon as the game is over, regardless if it's 2 a.m. on the East Coast, there should be somebody there to post a story and recap the game. That's the NHL's job to promote itself. And if they're not going to cover the playoffs, then clearly that is a problem. Robert in Hawthorne says, big fan of yours and a true diehard Kings fan from 1974. Coach Hiller appears to me to be one of the coolest low-key mad scientists of a coach who will try to do things to push the right buttons with his players, especially with the 5 forwards on the power play and also the 11-7 setup. He says, was at game 1 of the series, and it was so electric in the crypt, and a lot of my hockey friends were like me and my son Jeremiah nervous. Do you think other teams and fans have respect for our Kings and our fan base? Keep up the continued good work. And that was Robert in Hawthorne. Jim Hiller has certainly done a lot of good things. And for a guy who has never been a head coach in the Stanley Cup playoffs before, he certainly looks like he's under control and calm. And the Kings have played really well, so I guess it's easy to do that. But I think that he's done a great job so far in his first playoffs. As far as do teams and fans respect our fan base, I mean, it's kind of a hard question for me to answer. I think it would probably vary from fan to fan. I will say I've seen NHL games in New York and Chicago, and I honestly can say those fans are just like our fans. I honestly, going to see like East Coast hockey, I thought I would see a big difference. I honestly didn't. So we've got a couple more emails. We will get to those in just a moment here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. I want to tell you, where is my ad read? There it is. There's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute NHL showdown or soaking in the excitement of an NBA matchup. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge until I found Gametime. Gametime makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop as the event gets closer, and with their all-in pricing, you can see a total cost up front. No surprises at checkout. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater events. And with Seat View before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee, you can book with total confidence. Their lowest price guarantee means I never worry about overpaying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, couple more emails to get in here. We had Brian in Los Alamitos checking in at the wire. He says, unlike the past 3 postseasons, it's finally nice to see the Kings playing on the attack instead of trying to beat the Oilers with defense. This team has a lot of offensive talent, but I always felt that coaches and management would stifle the offensive creativity for the sake of defense first. I would never have guessed that Andrei Kuzmenko would be the catalyst to get the offense and power play going. Either Rob Blake is a genius or he's incredibly lucky. Do you know why Kuzmenko has been traded so many times in his short career? And lastly, do you think Rob Blake has secured himself an extension or if he wants it? Or is it contingent upon the Kings making it past the first round? I heard a rumor that Blake intends to step down no matter what at the end of the season. Thanks for another great week of shows. Go Kings, go. And that was Brian in Los Alamitos. I have heard some of those same rumors as well. I have no idea how much validity they have. I still think it's too soon to say that Rob Blake deserves an extension until the task is complete, and you know what task that is. So I say we still have to wait and see. But everything looks obviously very encouraging at this point. I was very surprised about Kuzmenko as well, as I have stated. He had a great first season in the NHL with Vancouver a couple years ago. Now, his next season wasn't as good, but it wasn't terrible, and they traded him to Calgary. Then this season, the Flames traded him to the Flyers, then traded him to LA. So certainly when you see a guy bounce around like that, you might initially think he must be a problem child. I mean, everything I've seen of Andrei Kuzmenko seems like he is just a fun-loving, happy, great attitude guy. And everybody seems to like him. So I don't think that's a part of it. So it just seems like teams have kind of given up on him very quickly. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I do want to mention Ed and Brea sent an email. He did also email me individually before games 1 and games 2. Yes, he guaranteed the Kings would lose. And an email from him just a little while ago before I recorded the show, and he did guarantee losses in games 3 and games 4. So we got that going for us. All right. So Kings in Edmonton for game 3 of the series. Just looking around the NHL playoffs to this point, there have been 2 instances of home teams winning the first 2 games at home. In the third game, one team won and one team lost. The Maple Leafs won over the Senators in games 1 and 2, and then won the third game in Ottawa in overtime. The Jets beat the Blues in games 1 and 2 at home. They then lost big to the Blues in St. Louis in the third game. As for the Kings on the road at the end of the season, they did win 5 of their last 7 road games, including a win in Edmonton over the B squad. As far as any news coming down on Thursday involving either team, there is nothing to report. The Oilers still have not announced who their goalie is going to be for game 3. I will be completely shocked if they go back to Stuart Skinner, who's allowed 11 goals in 2 games. I believe they will definitely start Calvin Pickard in net. As for the Kings, are they going to stay 11-7? Are they going to go back to 12-6? I don't know. My guess is the Kings will keep the extra defenseman and go again with the 11-7 setup. I did want to mention the Ontario Reign opened up the AHL playoffs last night with a 2-0 loss to the San Jose Barracuda in a game played at Crypto.com Arena. Phoenix Copley got the start in net. He allowed 2 goals on 25 shots. San Jose started goalie Yaroslav Askarov. He made just 17 saves in the shutout. That is a 3 versus 6 matchup. The Reign are the higher seed. And keep in mind, in the first round of the AHL playoffs, it's a best of 3. So if the Reigns don't win next game on Saturday, their season is over. I did not see Carter George as the goaltender in this one. It was, as I mentioned, it was Phoenix Copley, and Jacob Ingham served as the backup. I still have no idea what's going on with Eric Portillo. It seems like they have shut him down for the rest of the season due to whatever the injury is that he suffered weeks ago. So that's a little concerning. Also, Kings' first-round pick from this year's draft, forward Liam Greentree, is reportedly joining the Reign this weekend, although he's not expected to play on Saturday. And if the Reign are still alive, because they have to win game 2 to keep their season alive, he would probably be available for game 3 on Monday. So keep that in mind. I was thinking about this, and I kind of thought about it from a selfish standpoint, but it seemed like the Kings were pretty excited about the Ontario Reign playing at Crypto.com Arena. I wonder if the folks in Ontario were happy about that. I would assume a lot of the fans of the Ontario Reign are in the Inland Empire, and having to drive to downtown Los Angeles to see their team play in the playoffs, after thinking about it, might have not been all that great for them. So just curious, maybe they thought it was cool. Maybe you were like, oh, wow, the Reign are going to play at the Crypto. That's cool. We can go to downtown LA and, have some dinner and whatever. I don't know. I'm just curious how Reign fans feel about their team having to go play kind of on the road for their home playoff games. So I'm sure maybe it's a little bit of a mixed bag, or maybe they didn't think that was a cool idea. But unfortunately, the result was not cool. And we'll see if the Reign can win game 2, which I also believe is going to be at Crypto.com Arena coming up on Saturday. All right, for you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, our next show will be a recap of game 3 of the Stanley Cup playoffs between the Kings and Oilers. If you want to send an email for any reason, including being a part of our feedback show, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com. You can always leave your comments if you're watching on YouTube in the comments section. Stay interact with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you as always for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.